Good evening, and welcome along to the show. Again, we've got some fabulous guests on the lineup this week, including journalist, TV presenter, and renowned royal correspondent Jennie Bond. She's going to be with us. We'll be talking dating and dating trends for 2023 with Alix Fox. We'll have some live music in the studio from singer-songwriter McCarroll, and we'll be chatting to author Ian Nathan about his new book all about movie director James Cameron. But to start things off, comedian and actor Katherine joins us now. We're talking food and nostalgia, two of my favourite things. Let's find out more. Katherine is on the line. How are you today?
I'm very well. I'm looking nostalgic for you today. I've decided to do like a 80s, 90s crimp because you and I mean, we share the love of food and nostalgia. It's two of my favorite things as well.
Brilliant. So tell us about the latest research then. We're talking about foods and nostalgic foods that we loved as children. So what are your favorites then?
Well, Gusto's done loads of research into what makes the country happiest, and 76% have said that it really does like boost their mood to enjoy happy memories, and food is important with that. 36% of them have been craving foods from the happier times in their childhood. And like there has been doom and gloom on the news. So I love that we're getting together to do whatever we can to boost the mood. And it can be something so simple like mealtime. And I'm excited about these new recipes. So there's nods to what you might have loved from childhood. So I know a lot of the nation loves these turkey dinosaurs. We didn't have those in Canada, but there is an Indian spiced chicken nugget that's really wonderful to make at home with fresh ingredients. There's also a Moroccan cottage pie. That was my big one growing up. My mom made such a lovely, warming, happy cottage pie, and just the smells of it. I mean, it's cold in Canada a lot of the time, but it's getting cold here. Yeah. And I feel like a cottage pie could fix everything.
Yeah, that sounds really good, actually. Now, one that I've rediscovered recently is fish fingers, and fish finger sandwiches are just amazing.
And do you do a tartar sauce on that, obviously?
Of course, yeah.
Well, you can make a homemade tartar sauce. I have discovered that recipe, and you can make it with this soft bun that the family love and a little bit of lettuce. Shredded lettuce would be my top tip for your fish finger sandwich. Get more of your 5 a day in there, but it's up to you, really. You can do all these throwbacks in new inventive ways, thanks to the chefs and nutritionists and dietitians who really work hard to make these top tier restaurant level recipes at home.
So what else have we discovered about nostalgic foods then? Of course, the old Sunday roasts will always come out on top. It's the classic, isn't it?
I do think that. And I like a chicken Sunday roast. I also like all the accompaniments that go along with it. I know cabbage is very controversial for some reason. Maybe it's because I'm like of Irish descent, but I'm a huge cabbage fan. Mash and gravy and cabbage. Parsnips I could do without, but cabbage is a must. I would put cabbage in anything.
Yeah. And what about cauliflower cheese with your Sunday dinner?
That one's nice. I didn't know you had that over here at first. Anytime I hear cheese, I think, well, that's come from America. But I was very happy to see that cauliflower cheese is being embraced in the UK. And I've learned, with these amazing recipes, you sprinkle a little bit of cayenne or paprika on that cauliflower cheese, you're looking at a whole new world.
Exactly. Now, what about fish and chips? Are you a big fan of those?
I am a big fan. And, growing up, we were quite gluten-free. And fish and chips, I would kind of eat the middle of it and just have the breading as almost like an adornment that was not to be eaten, but was to be looked at. But I actually found that it's crispier if you do a gluten-free batter. Like I adjust a lot of these recipes, and you can adjust them however you want. If you're ordering the recipe boxes, then you can make your own adjustments if you feel like it. But also, the recipes are all published online if you want to just be inspired or source your own ingredients. But I do like a rice flour, corn flour mix, and it stays crispier when you fry that batter. So I think even if you're not gluten-free, you should try gluten-free fish and chips.
Sounds good. Now, beans on toast made it onto the list as well. And what would make that even more special is adding cheese to beans on toast.
Whoa. Yes. Now you're cooking with gas. Yeah. I love that idea. Beans on toast is a classic. I was very lucky to be invited to the home of a beans on toast enthusiast. He is called Captain beanie. And his entire flat is a museum dedicated to beans now. And you can go, it's in Port Talbot. And he's got his entire head tattooed in beans. He's got bean eyebrows. And it really communicated to me, okay, this is a dish that the nation is very passionate about, to have their own bean superhero. Yeah. But Gusto have made this very inventive beans on toast burger with crispy potatoes. And you've just got to try it. I would never think to make something like that on my own, but it is so delicious and it is a proper dinner.
Now, you keep mentioning the Gusto recipes there. Where can we go to check out these fabulous recipes then?
You can go to gusto.co.uk or you can download the app. Makes it loads easier, as I have done. Love having that app, either for inspiration or to enjoy these recipe boxes at home.
Well, Katherine, since I have you on the show today, are there any projects in the pipeline, anything coming up that we should know about?
Well, I'm on tour. I've been on tour for a year and I'm wrapping that up in the north-ish, November 12th. So this week I'm in Woking and then I'm in Dartford, but then I'm in Leicester, Stockton-on-Tees. I'm in Manchester. And I'm really looking forward to wrapping it up, actually, because that means you get to write a whole new tour. Yeah. I'm having a baby this year. I just had one last year. I don't know if I'll be having one next year. And I was very lucky to be interviewed by Louis Theroux, who's doing a whole new series of interviews for the BBC. And that's coming out this year sometime, I think, as well. The trailer's out, so it must be coming up soon. They never tell us, but that was really cool.
Well, since you have the whole 80s look thing going on today, what about 80s music then? Who's your favorites?
I mean, I will be honest with you. I was born in 1983. So for me, the 90s bangers really hit home. But of course, I remember my mom listening to loads of Madonna and Whitney Houston and, dare I say, you know, a few other kings of pop and things like that along the way. I loved Tiffany. I don't know if you had that here. And Cyndi Lauper, Blondie was fun. I think, you know, there's just, everyone says the music from their childhood is the best. I know it's cliche to say that, but I really think we had a lot of hits in the 80s, 90s. And in Britain, the boy band, girl band takeover of the noughties was something special too.
Exactly. Well, Katherine, it's been great talking to you on the show today. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
You too. Thank you so much.
Okay, my next guest was in Belfast for the Cinemagic Film Festival recently. He's just written a book all about the legendary movie director James Cameron. So here's what happens when I caught up with Ian Nathan. Ian and Nathan, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's good to be here.
So welcome to Belfast. Have you been here before?
Just once before, and that was for the Belfast Film Festival when I came to talk about The Terminator. So I come to Belfast to talk about James Cameron,
yes,
it seems.
Yeah. At the minute you're here for the Cinemagic Festival, which really is something special, isn't it?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's about sort of opening up the world of film to a younger generation, and not just in terms of watching films and enjoying new films, but saying actually there are careers here, there are possibilities. I always think the kind of film world looks like an impenetrable barrier. You go, oh, I can't get into that. Yeah. But Cinemagic is really kind of getting there saying, well, actually you can learn these skills, there are opportunities. And it's something James Cameron would greatly admire, because he says the only way you become a director is you pick up a camera and you start working. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So you've been meeting young people here in Belfast. Are they into James Cameron? Have they seen Aliens?
They have seen Aliens. I did a talk today, and I was a bit worried. I was like, did you know The Terminator? Am I going to spoil these films for you? But they were very eager. They'd seen Aliens, they knew The Terminator. And of course, Avatar and Titanic they knew very well. Yes, yeah. And we showed them The Abyss, which I thought was the one they may not have seen. Yeah, yeah. And they came out of it going, oh, it's great. And I was saying, well, it's probably his most debated film. But they were really engaged, really interested. And there's so many great stories about him. I think they enjoyed this idea of that personality.
Well, we'll get to some of those stories in a second, but the book comes at a very good time because, of course, Avatar has just been re-released, and then as we get towards Christmas, we're getting the sequel, aren't we, as well? So.
We are. It's a really interesting time, I think, for Cameron. He's been away over a decade making this fleet of sequels to Avatar. And everyone I think we've forgotten Avatar a little bit. We're a bit like, what was all the fuss about? Yeah. And so there's a little bit of scepticism in the air. Do we still care? Are we still in? But you think James Cameron knows that. He's well aware of what he's facing. He's a really smart guy. So I just get this sense that he's ready to re-embrace the world
But
for
that's
us.
the thing, because the timing is perfect, because it is just over a decade from the first one was released, isn't it? So you're getting that new audience coming up as well, aren't you?
I also think he's looked at the world of computer graphics and thought it's reached a plateau, it's monotonous, it's repetitive. So he thought, I'm going to reinvent CGI for an audience. We're going to go in and relearn wonder at the movies.
So for you, what was it about James Cameron then? What is it you like?
Well, I think like many of my generation, I grew up on The Terminator, I grew up on Aliens, I grew up on T2. You know, they were films vitally important to me. And I became a film journalist, and Cameron was always the big guy. You know, when his films came along, and there weren't too many of them, they were just major events. And he's an extraordinary self-mythologizer. I mean, the thing about Cameron is like he can do any job on a set the better than anyone else, you know, apart from acting. And even some of the actors suspect he might do that quite well. And he's the same with interviews. He's the best at doing interviews. He gives you stories and sound bites and everything you need. So it was just a really good opportunity. Plus, I felt that he is literally the most successful filmmaker in history, arguably the most successful artist of all time, if you sort of calculate it in dollar terms. But he's never taken seriously, not in a kind of filmic way. And I wanted to write a book that both told his story, which is fantastic, but also said, actually, he's a major filmmaker. He's a major intellectual filmmaker. He's a clever guy. There's lots more to him. And of course, with Avatar 2 coming out, it was a good opportunity and time to do the book as well.
Let's talk a bit about his background, because I didn't know, but he started with Roger Corman, didn't he, way back?
Yeah, well, of course, he's Canadian. And he came to LA with his father's work, and he'd seen Star Wars in 2001 and those kind of films and thought, I want to be a filmmaker. But rather like with Cinemagic, he had no idea how he was going to get into this business. But he started to do it. He started making models with his friends. And he heard through the kind of local hire shops that Roger Corman, the B-movie maestro, was hiring for a film called Battle Beyond the Stars. He needed model makers. And Cameron literally walked into the office, showed them his film he'd made, and they hired him on the spot. He said, I was on the first rung. And he said, I knew I was going to do it. And within weeks, you know, he'd been promoted 3 times. He was running the model shop. He just had that natural leadership in him. And so his destiny was calling. But it's really hands-on, Roger Corman. I mean, they had no money. Yeah. So if you were near to it, you did it. Yes, yeah. So it was the ultimate film school for him. And he says he still like it. Even now on Avatar sequels, he's still the Roger Corman guy, wanting to do everything, totally hands-on.
He was a big fan of John Carpenter as well, and obviously got to work on Escape from New York.
Yeah, well, he said, you know, Halloween and Escape from New York were kind of the films that really inspired him. If you think about Terminator, it's kind of a remake of Halloween. He loved that purity in John Carpenter's work. And while he was at Roger Corman, John Carpenter needed the special effects work done on Escape from New York. And Cameron was simply put on the project. And all those kind of great Manhattan skylines, because the film was made in St. Louis, and he did all these kind of skylines. They were all painted by James Cameron. He did the kind of fake computer graphics. So he got to work with his hero, a little bit at a distance. John Carpenter wasn't that present, but he got his name on a John Carpenter movie. And he still, to this day, says, Carpenter was the guy. He's the guy I wanted to be.
Wow. What about Piranha 2? I see that gets mentioned here. Is that one he leaves off his CV?
Well, he does own up to it. That was the job he got out of Roger Corman. And we're working with these scurrilous Italian producers who were just making exploitation movies. Yeah. But because he was James Cameron, he wanted to make the best Piranha sequel you could possibly make. Yeah. And they fired him after 2 weeks. And he went to Rome, where the producer lived, because he was determined to prove that his footage was all right. And he had a huge argument with him. And he went back in and he saw his footage was all right. And he said, actually, I can direct. This guy's lying. Yeah. And it was while he was in Rome, he got this kind of flu. And he had a fever dream. And he dreamt this idea of a robot clambering out of the flames with a knife, bringing himself forward. That was the Terminator. Yes. And he dreamt it up while he was in Rome. So Piranha 2 did do one thing for him. It gave him the film that made his name.
Yeah. First time I really became aware of James Cameron was Aliens, which I still think is one of the best movies of all time. And a movie with the sequel's actually better than the original, I think. Yeah,
up to that point, sequels were kind of a bad thing. There were law of diminishing returns, unless you were Godfather Part 2 or Empire Strikes Back, which are kind of saga films. Yeah. Sequels were bad business. You don't do them, you let yourself down. So people were trying to talk him out of Aliens. But there's a famous story of there's always famous stories of James Cameron. But when he went to pitch it to the studio, and all the studio execs are there, and his producers are there, and of course they expect the whole thing, slideshows and assistants. Yeah. And there's just a whiteboard, and he walks in on his own, not so much as a folder about his person, walks up to the whiteboard and writes the word alien on it with his pen. There's kind of a pause. He doesn't say a word, And there's a kind of pause, and I look at him going, what's he doing? Then he writes an S at the end of Aliens, which was aliens.
Yeah.
Then he makes the S a $sign. And I don't know whether he dropped the pen, but he's dropped the mic. No, he drops the pen and he walks out again without having said a word. And the story is that film was greenlit that afternoon. Because he understood that it was what he needed to expand the story. You keep everything that's brilliant about Ridley Scott's original, and there was a lot that was brilliant about it. But you expand it. You expand it in terms of the creature, you expand it in terms of the setting, the number of characters. It's now an army patrol. And you make Ripley a much bigger character. She's much more to her. He always understood that. Yeah. And then you have the perfect sequel. He makes it look easy.
Exactly, no, he does. And then as I flick through the book here as well, of course, Titanic jumps out of the book as well, which we have to talk about. I mean, again, at that time, one of the biggest movies ever made, wasn't it?
Yeah, and an absolute sort of disaster in the making when he made it. I mean, they wanted him to do another Terminator film, do your sci-fi stuff, Jim, that's what you do. And he said, I want to make this period romance. And everyone's like, what? Yeah, the studio were aghast, but he was James Cameron, so they let him do it. And of course, famously, it was like the budget went up, it was spiraling out of control. He built a replica Titanic to sink, and all these things. And it was being written about as the new Cleopatra, the biggest disaster in studio history. But Cameron knows better, and he got his film out there. And it did well in its opening weekend. Then did this incredible thing. It made more money in its second weekend, and more money in its third weekend. And that film, which cost $200 million, an unprecedented amount, made $2 billion at the box office. I mean, no studio could even dream of that. And famously, along the way, because he was so insistent that it's all about his film, he gave his wages back to Fox. He said, okay, I'll give them back to you. And his percentage in the profits.
Wow.
And when they came in, Fox were good enough to go, okay, you can have your wages back, Mr. Cameron, and your profit sharing, because you've done rather well for us with this film. I don't know what he has an instinct for what an audience wants. Yeah. Although he makes genre films, disaster movies and sci-fi movies, there's something universal in the way he approaches them. Aliens is the story of a mother and re-embracing a child. Titanic is a romance. And he says it's a romance done at an accelerated rate, because you've got to get them meeting each other to being unsplittable by the time the ship sinks. You've got to go through that. So he does very universal things we can all understand, and I think that's why you get these huge, huge audiences. Exactly.
So the book's out now. I mean, it's packed full of fabulous stories and fabulous photographs from the movies as well. I mean, did you handpick all those for the...
Well, you work with the designers, and you sort of go through things and sort of say, well, that's not relevant here, but... With Cameron, it's just a GIF, as you were saying. It's just like, Aliens and Terminator 2. It's just, how many more of these we can get in? And I'm like, make room for my words, please.
So the book's out now. Is there another book in the pipeline from you? Are you going to move on to somebody else?
My next subject is Clint Eastwood.
Wow.
I know, you go from Titan to Titan.
Exactly, yeah.
And I mean, with Cameron, you get sort of 10 or more films. With Clint Eastwood, it's 40 films he's directed. So there's a lot more films to get through.
When you think of it, you get all the different versions of Clint Eastwood, from Spaghetti Western, then you get Dirty Harry, then, as I watched the other night on one of the Sky channels, the one with the gorilla, there's a couple of those as well. Exactly, there's all these different Clint Eastwoods, isn't there? And the recent stuff, the directing and all that as well. I mean, he's incredible. He is a legend.
92, and it's a 50-something year career. So it's quite a lot to take hold of.
Exactly, wow. And have you ever met Clint Eastwood?
I have. Yeah. He's like an elder statesman. I met him probably about 20 years ago. And he just, a bit like Cameron, he knows what you need. He knows how to deal with journalists. And he doesn't do any fussy stuff, themes and Freudian readings, any of that stuff. Let's just talk about the movie.
Obviously, I mean, you're a massive movie fan. You always have been. But do you remember that moment growing up where you suddenly realised that you wanted to get into this? Do you remember the film that kind of changed everything for you?
I have three. Right. Like any film geek, I had three experiences. One is my mum talking about Dr. No was going to be on Bank Holiday. And I'm sure we've all had a similar experience. But this was an age when there were 3 television channels.
Yes, yeah.
And she really built it up. Like, this is a special event, it's coming on, it's a rare chance. So it became like the idea of film as an event. Mm-hmm. And of course, then Dr. No was fantastic. So it lived up to its billing. And then I have going to see Blade Runner, again with my mum, because it had Han Solo in it. Because I love Star Wars.
Exactly, yes, yeah.
And I came away sort of troubled because I didn't quite grasp the film. I was too young, probably. But it haunted me.
Yes.
And I kept going back to it, and I've written about it probably more than any other film. So the idea of understanding a film came with me. And the other one is a Clint one. It's The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which I watched at a friend's house. His dad put it on. And I was like, Western. But I never knew. It was the first time I realised that a film could have a personality all of its own, and that music and those images. And I thought, what, a film can do so many different things. I never realized. So they're the three that kind of changed me. And after that, I was just hungry for it all. You know,
Yeah. Well, since we're on the 60th anniversary of Dr. No, well, what's your thoughts on future James Bonds? Are we going to see a female Bond? Are we?
I think they're being clever. They'll have it both ways. I think they'll carry on with 007, the younger one, because obviously they want a 10-year career at least ahead of whoever's cast. And I think they'll develop a female version of Bond around it. Because it's a big franchise business. So they want different things. There might be a television angle, there might be other movies. So what I think they do is they have their cake and eat it a little bit. So we'll still get a Bond film, but we'll get a kind of a 008 female Bond film and all sorts of different things.
And your favourite James Bond?
Difficult. I mean, I'm a Connery guy. And I know Goldfinger is probably the best one. But You Only Live Twice is the one that I just love. It's just
because Donald Pleasance is in it.
Donald Pleasance,
Dr. Loomis is Blofeld. You know,
I know. It's just, it's a ridiculous film, but I enjoy it every time I see it.
Exactly, great stuff. If people want to get their hands on the book, how do they do that now? Then
it's all good bookshops. It's I mentioned it, Amazon and all those kind of those outlets. It's widely available. And if you're into Cameron, then here are the stories for you.
Brilliant, Ian. It's been great talking to you. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, still to come, some live music in the studio from singer-songwriter Philip McCarroll. But before that, we're talking dating trends and the dating trends for 2023. And pleased to say that Alix Fox joined me on the line earlier on this week. Here's what happened. Now, dating app Plenty of Fish has revealed their dating trends for 2023. To talk about this further, I'm pleased to say we've been joined on the line by dating expert, journalist and broadcaster Alix Fox, who's going to discuss some of the more challenging and, well, slightly weird dating trends as we look ahead to next year. So, Alix, thank you for joining us. First of all, the big thing is the fake face filters have gone. The fake photographs are disappearing at last, aren't they?
This is true. Now, all this data dating is based on a survey conducted by the dating app Plenty of Fish. They do this annually. They quiz 1,000 UK singles about their dating habits and behaviours to see how they're influenced by current trends, the economy, politics, environmental concerns, cultural effects, and then they pull out what this year are 9 key trends, one of which they've called bay reeling, or being real, baying real. We're about to enter, apparently, Robin, a sincerer era. After years of people getting sick to death of Photoshop and pictures being put through so many filters that folks' faces don't even resemble humans anymore, there is a backlash against that in the broader context of social media, but particularly in dating apps. This is actually quite heartening, I think. The Plenty of Fish statistics say that even though 69% of singletons say that they have used a filter on their photos in the past to try and appear more attractive to others, 74% of them, so a big wodge, almost 3/4, say they would be comfortable now posting a completely honest, authentic, unfiltered shot on their profile. And they're being more straightforward and upfront about other things that they want from relationships and who they are as well. They're cutting to the chase when it comes to chasing love.
Okay, so what else have we learned then? Because it seems that TV shows like Love Island always seem to have some effect on these surveys, don't they?
It does. It's ubiquitous because so many people watch it. This year, Plenty of Fish have decided that the Ekinsu turn or Ekinsu turn is going to be a big phenomenon, named after Ekinsu and Davide, the winners of Love Island 2022, who famously on the show actually split up. They parted ways for a while and then reunited successfully. 70% of Brits have had similar experiences where they've left a lover, maybe dated around, and then realized that what they had was better than they previously thought, and they wanted to give it a second chance. 50% of people actually said that it was a new relationship. It was dating someone fresh, made them look at their old relationship with fresh eyes. And 51% as well said they were unresolved issues. They just didn't feel that they'd every stone had been left unturned. So they went back to re-examine those rocks and maybe see if they wanted to put a rock in their finger.
Okay, well, talking about putting rocks on fingers, the cost of living is rising. Is that putting people off dating?
Well, this one's rock bottom, really, isn't it? All of us are having a very sobering time when it comes to the cost of living. And in particular, Plenty of Fish and I have been looking at the cost of loving, how the fact that our concerns about how we're going to afford our eating and our heating are impacting our love lives and dating habits for singletons. 73%, massive proportion of single people have said that they have avoided or cancelled a plan, even if they really wanted to meet up with somebody, because they were worried that their wallet couldn't stretch to it. And again, over half of people said that this rising cost of loving was definitely going to change the way that they approach dating. It's not all doom and gloom, though. There are constructive, cheaper ways that you can be very romantic. And actually, I would find someone being honest with me about their financial situation and then coming up with an imaginative suggestion of doing something together that wasn't going to put both of our purses under strain, that would make me think that that person was someone that I could potentially be in it for the long haul with, for richer and for poorer.
Now, what about the environmental stuff as well? Because there's now a thing called eco-dumping, isn't there?
Yes, now this again is a juicy one, because this is something where we can definitely see a change in dating behaviours over time. Now, every year when Plenty of Fish do their survey, the same things come up that people say they look for in a partner. 39% of people say they want someone family oriented. It's forever popular that you want someone with a sense of humour, for example. But this year, over a third of singles were saying that they would consider dumping someone, an eco-dump, if you will, if that person's environmental credentials and their concerns with sustainability didn't match their own. I think that's not just about wondering whether someone who might rock your world in other ways cares enough about the earth. But there's a correlation, isn't there, sometimes with people who say don't believe in climate change. They might also be inclined to believe other conspiracy theories or have particular political ideologies that inform their thinking. If you're someone who is concerned about the environment, maybe someone who says that the hole in the ozone layer has a hole in its thinking is not a good match for you.
Exactly. Now, tell me about 180 dating then. What's all that about?
I love this one because it rhymes. Can you tell that me, with my linguistics degree, put my education to use in helping to name some of these trends? We try and make them snappy so they're memorable and easy to talk about. Some of these concepts are quite amorphous when you're talking about psychology and behavior and stuff. So 180 dating is the concept of flipping your usual type, the kind of guy or gal that you imagine would suit your tastes, completely on its head, doing a 180 and dating somebody totally outside of your usual lane. It often happens after a big breakup or a divorce, and it often happens that this new 180 dating partner is maybe a little younger than you, because we find that people after a prolonged period of a lot of seriousness, of exhausting heartache, of depressing arguments and downhearted conversations, they're looking for a new influx of youthful energy. They want to have fresh experiences. They want to rediscover hedonism and happiness and silliness and a little bit of sexiness as well. And that's what 180 dating is all about.
Okay, let's go for another one on the list. What about milestoning?
I'm guilty of this one, certainly in the past. Milestoning is the act of amping up your activity on dating apps, trying to get a date for a milestone occasion. It might be a big birthday, say, oh, I really want to find somebody by the time I'm 35 or whatnot. Or it might be a family or friend's wedding. In fact, that's the most popular reason for milestoning. 55% of people say that they've done that. I would caution, though, if you find a milestone date, if there are photographs being taken at that big event, you might want to make sure that your date isn't in every single one of them so that if it doesn't work out, you don't cringe at that family photo album every time it's brought out. But then sometimes, really concentrating on your dating life, prioritizing that, and saying, you know, putting out into the universe, saying, I really would like to find someone great by this point in my life, and I'm going to focus on that with the same determination as I would my career goals, or the same love as I would show my friends, the same devotion. It can work out for people.
Now, a very extreme version of that, I remember being at a wedding show many years ago and meeting a lady who was booking everything for her wedding. She was putting down deposits for the videographer, the photographers, she was booking the venue, she was dealing with the food, she was booking everything. And at the end of the day, I said to her, well, if you got everything sorted for your wedding now? And she says, I have. There's only one thing I need now, and that is I haven't found the man that I'm going to marry yet.
Now that is really nailing your colours to the mast, isn't it? That is putting your money on the table and placing your bet. Do you know how this gamble turned out for her?
I don't, but I've always wondered, did she ever find the lucky guy, or did she just lose all that deposit money? I would love to know.
Did she find her honey, or did she waste her money? Wow. It feels like she's a reality dating show all on her own, doesn't it?
She would be great on a reality TV show, she really would. Right, let's go for another one on this list then. What should we go for this time? What about clickbaying?
Oh, this is another fun one. That can be interpreted in lots of different ways. So clickbaying takes its name from clickbait. When you see a piece of clickbait online, it lures and allures you into clicking on it and following that story. It's very instinctive, it's tempting. People who exhibit clickbait behavior go onto a dating app and they will match with whoever takes their fancy. They're not overanalyzing profiles. They're not thinking too hard about whether someone is their typical type. Maybe they're up for some 180 dating. They're just going with their gut instinct. They may also not be somebody who likes to have protracted back and forth conversations in text before they arrange a date. It's all about the here and now and meeting as many people as possible. For some folks, this can be a great way if you're not sure of the kind of person that you want, or you're just up for a bit of fun and you want to expand your horizons, your experience. Clickbaying can be extremely successful. You can meet many new friends and potential new lovers as well. For others, it is indicative of a trend that Plenty of Fish actually identified last year in their annual survey, which is hesitating. People can sometimes be a bit of a clickbait if they're actually not sure what they want, and then they're a bit hesitant. They've got one foot in, one foot out. They kind of think that maybe they want some dates, but they don't really know much about their future. We saw a lot of this in the latter stages of the pandemic, when lots of people were very uncertain about their futures, still feeling quite wary about meeting strangers and socializing again. They were very hesitant generally. So sometimes that clickbaiting behavior can be indicative that someone's mind is a little bit scattered. So it's all about context and nuance. These are definitely trends, but people will be doing them for different reasons.
Okay, so there we have it, some of the big dating trends for 2023. Alix, it's been great talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
It's been a treasured pleasure as ever, and good luck to anybody on your search for love and lust. I think being yourself, no matter what's going on in the dating world and what's affecting things, being true to yourself is always a good rule of thumb if you want to, get your hands on somebody or get that ring on your finger.
Walking circles for days, winning seasons to cheat, keeping my eyes on the horizon, throwing fuel in the fire, feeling nothing but time, little changes, no surprises. Whoa, oh, oh. Gotta stay safe for the one who needs me. Whoa, oh, oh. Trying to keep it both on my feet from stumbling. absent will leave. Living life on repeat, empty roads in the heat, just for the sake of moving. I've climbed every wall, justifying it all, making note of the months we're losing. Whoa, oh, oh. The nightmares soak in the sheets of my bed. Whoa, oh, oh. How the hell is she still living rent-free in my head? The beds have gone quiet, the floodlights are dying, I'm full of wonder. I've left the cathedral behind, all the people who try to drag me under. No flower in this desert, light in the tunnel is only what you might have been. Absent with leave. You let your defenses down, and I thought for one moment that you could see me. The beds have gone quiet, the floodlights are dying, I'm full of wonder. I left the cathedral behind, all the people who try to drag me under. No flower in this desert, light in the tunnel is only what you should have been. Absent with leave. Absent with leave.
So there we go, live in the studio, Philip McCarroll with one of the songs from this little mini album that he brought out during lockdown, and I'm pleased to say we'll chat to him now. How are you, sir?
I'm great, Rob. Thanks for having me back again.
Thank you for joining us. I think it was 2018 was the last time you were here.
It really was. It was in the before times, a very different era.
And then, of course, we
It
had
was the hottest day of the
COVID.
year I was in here the last time.
You
I
were in
was
your
I
shorts?
was sitting in my shorts and t-shirt and I was still boiling. It was ridiculous. It's somewhat different now, in the depths of November. But
Exactly.
I'm just glad to be here. Glad any of us are here.
Exactly. So for a musician like yourself, it must be good to actually get back out and, first of all, do some gigs again.
Oh my goodness gracious, yeah. I think I snuck in two at the end of 2021 before things went pear-shaped again. And I've actually only just started getting really back into the way of gigging since July there. I don't know, I was slightly disillusioned with the whole thing, and maybe I was more interested as a promoter in getting my shows back, the Sounds of NI gigs that I put on. I wanted to get them back up and running again and sort of make sure they were taken care of before I looked after my own solo thing. But yeah, around July there, I just got the bug for it again. I'm really pleased that it did, because I was kind of concerned about myself. I've always been a gig monster, a gig animal. I would play in like a phone box in the back end of nowhere. And for some reason, I just thought, it's more important for me now to promote other bands and other things. And, we'll sort that. I can do my own thing as well. So it's back. The bug's back.
Brilliant. Well, tell us
The
about,
good bug.
tell us about the song you just performed there, Absent with Leave. What's the story behind that one?
Absent with Leave. Actually, that is now that's from the George Best, the John Lennon mini album thing. That I brought it out during a period that you couldn't gig. I couldn't really do much promo work aside of what you get away with online. So that song was about the lockdown era, I guess, and my experiences during both of those, and the effect it has on relationships and potential relationships and all the rest of it, and just that trying to grind through these periods of your life that are fairly difficult. So but it's not a miserable song as such, but I guess it just sums up lockdown and the experience that everybody went through, but people had different sort of levels of it. And mostly that tune, the effect on relationships, the negative effect on relationships. If, you know, I don't want to explain it too much. Like, you know, take your own meaning from it.
Tell us about the title, because I love this. George Best to John Lennon. I can't believe that it's taken this amount of time for somebody to actually use that phrase.
Yeah. I mean,
it's been out there for years, and nobody's thought about linking these two legends in a song.
Exactly. Well, it's the airports, you see.
Yeah.
We used to make that journey from Belfast to Liverpool all the time, and then of course the airports changed names. So George Best to John Lennon is a journey that people make every day of the week, and I thought, well, surely somebody's used this somewhere along the line. I wrote a song called George Best to John Lennon, which is just about life's journeys, and that particular one, that, you know, the band I used to be in, we used to make an awful lot. We used to record over there, and you know, just two great cities linked by George Best, John Lennon, two heroes, two icons, two heroes of mine. It had to be done. A tune called George Best to John Lennon, and then I ended up naming the mini album after it. It seemed appropriate enough.
Brilliant. Well, tell us about that band that you used to be in then, Paola. Whatever happened to them, and where's the rest of the guys today?
I mean, again, where are they now, Fal? Yeah. I mean, to me, Paola will always be a going concern, because I never put it to bed. I'm still a member of the band. A couple of the other guys, Nicky and Adam, still in the band, and we would get together now and again, actually do the acoustic stuff. You know, we played together a few weeks ago at one of my own solo shows. We did a whole segment of the show that was Paola acoustic stuff. There's no plans to bring the band back as such as yet, but I never say never to that. It could happen. You know, whether with the old lineup or with a new guitar player, whatever. You know, you don't want to put these things to bed, because we were a great live band, and we had good songs too. I think we were rather underrated. Yeah, you know, definitely. Not least by ourselves. You know, but
that's
a bit of
like a
distance.
lot of Northern Ireland bands who are really kind of underrated. I mean, I remember you guys in the beginning, because we had Big Buzz magazine at the time. Were promoting you like crazy.
Well, you properly rated us. You didn't underrate us. You probably overrated us, if anything. But you did. You looked after us very well, and we could have done with a bit more of that. I think we were a rock and roll band, and there's this maybe a wee bit. I learn about this quite often, but a wee bit of musical snobbery in Belfast and Northern Ireland, not amongst punters, but amongst the music media. I'm just talking about a wee smidgen of it, that sort of the hard rock's the poor relation, and this country's always excelled at hard rock music, and there's a lot of bands out there that mates of mine, people I know, who would go out, say, during the summer festival season. They're all over they're all over Europe, and even the US gigging, and they're, you know, good level bands on that stage throughout Europe, Scandinavia, Japan being looked after. Back here, kind of nobody, because they don't get the same column inches, they don't get the same airplay that they would do elsewhere, which is kind of a shame, because they should be championed as hometown heroes, and they have to go elsewhere to be appreciated. And Paola had a little bit of that too. I just say, you know, I mean, it's just slightly less musical snobbery. I mean, hard rock and metal, again, get treated a little bit as the redheaded stepchild. It absolutely shouldn't be that way, because that music's got it all. I mean, I'm a lover of rock and roll, even though I'm doing the acoustic thing now.
Yes,
I'll always be a rocker, always.
Yeah. And what about the gigs that you're promoting? Because you really care about these up and coming bands and give them the kind of out there, the gigs.
Sounds of NI's been going for at least a decade and a half, but 15 years of promoting shows around Belfast and elsewhere in Northern Ireland. And yeah, it's something we built up. Now, one of the most difficult things about, you know, the 2 years, it wasn't just the 2 lockdowns. It was live music just died a death for effectively the guts of 2 years, and it was a painful period for anybody who works in that sector, with the lack of help and the lack of vision to get out of it, and, you know, the extremity of the restrictions that we were under. So yeah, for the first time ever, I'd gone for 2 years without either playing a show or running one, and it was so good to get back to it. I think it was February there, we put on our first show in the Empire Music Hall, and it was just like, you know, well, old times except better. It was that bounce, that sort of feeling of people absolutely champing at the bit to be back out again. Wonderful atmosphere, and generally since then it's been very good. I mean, we've run a lot of shows, and we've got more coming up in November, December, and it really has been a wonderful return to form, if you know what I mean. It's people still love live music, and nothing that can happen, even for two whole years of it being taken away from you. People came back in their droves. Thank goodness.
Who's good at the minute? Who should we be watching out for?
Well, I mean, I've got a gig on this weekend. There's a band called Anto and the Echoes, and they're a great live band, because they've got elements of heavy rock and sort of almost like a Meatloaf Queen kind of, you know, dynamic, in that there's a over-the-top element to them, but the songs are also sort of indie-friendly, alternative-friendly. But more important than anything else, they put on a really, really good show. And the kind of bands that I always want to book are the ones that are going to entertain me, because I got to be there, I've got to be watching them.
Exactly,
so I mean,
yes,
I'm going to get bored fairly
Yeah.
quickly if they're looking at their shoes or whatever. I mean, I know a lot of people like that kind of stuff. I don't want to be derogatory about bands who want to look at their shoes, but I want to be entertained.
Yeah.
And these guys do it fantastically well. And there's a band called Eons playing with them. They're well worth looking out for.
Yeah.
Myriad Things with a bit of a psychedelic edge.
Right.
And Heavy Session playing that game. There's never a lack of good bands around. I mean, if I start naming them, I'll be here all day.
Yeah, exactly,
And
yes,
I'll really annoy the people that I leave out. So just naming the ones from that particular gig in the Empire this weekend.
What about yourself? You have a new single out?
Yep, I've got 2 new singles out. The first one was called Sleeping in the Trenches, and that's it's almost like a campfire sing-along about political tribalism, which we know a bit about in this
Exactly,
country,
yes,
but
yeah.
with the American elections and stuff going on around this time. Yeah, that's just my little 2p's worth on that. I've always got 2p's worth on just about everything, so that, yeah. Sleeping in the Trenches seemed like a fairly appropriate name. And the other one's No Longer, which I suppose is a more traditional sort of love ballad kind of thing, but it's heartfelt.
Yeah.
You know, and it's set in picturesque county down countryside, so that's a nice tune.
That's
I'll play
nice.
that as well.
And your wee son, he likes that one, doesn't he? He likes
No,
that
Rex
track.
loves Sleeping in the
He loves
Trenches.
Sleeping in the Trenches,
I
yes.
don't know what he makes of No Longer. Like, he's not ready for love songs yet from Dad, you know. But he loves Sleeping in the Trenches, and he made me release that one because he said it was very catchy and he can sing along to it. And said, wow. That's important. You got to get the kids on your side, especially your own kids.
And what age is he?
He's 6.
And is he showing signs of wanting to pick
He's
up a
shown
guitar?
unbelievable signs of all of it. I mean, he's got a ukulele and he's got a guitar, and he's but more even than that. I mean, he's playing them constantly. He's got a little suitcase record player, and he's become a vinyl obsessive, which I am.
Yeah.
And I've got him set up with a whole load of 7-inch singles, Beatles singles, because I've got kind of doubles of them and stuff.
Yes,
so he's
yeah.
building up this wee collection of singles, which he adores, and plays them inside out, you know, the B-sides and everything, and knows the lyrics of everything. It's fantastic because my twin obsessions are music and football.
Yeah.
And he's just not showing the football signs. He doesn't mind playing. He won't watch it. He just won't watch it, which is so worrying to me, you know, because how are we going to relate to each other?
Yeah.
But but with music, he gets it. He
Yeah.
gets it. And he writes his own songs constantly, and he's
Wow.
got his record collection. So yeah, that is something I'm gonna completely. I mean, not push, not be
Yeah.
a pushy parent. I don't
Yeah.
even have to with it.
Yeah.
He just gets it.
You got to bring him next time you come in.
Oh, he was gonna almost come today.
Yeah.
I think I got a babysitter, but maybe I should have brought him. He could have just come on. He could have come done back and forth, done a bit of dancing. Believe me, he would have.
What about live gigs for yourself? What's coming up?
Well, the most interesting one I've got coming up, I'm doing gigs all the time, even including I've got a 2-piece thing with a friend of mine called Phil McKee that we do a bunch of covers as well, something I've never stepped
Yeah.
into before, but that's a bit of fun. That we do that for the crack. I'm playing Philip McCarroll's solo show it's in the Deer's Head in Belfast.
great
It's
venue, yeah.
Friday the 25th of November. I know it's during the World Cup because it's the same night as England are playing the USA in the World Cup, because I have to book everything around the World Cup, you see. But it's after that, so
Right.
I'll get to see that first. And I'm supporting a guy called John Corabi. And he was the second singer in Motley Crue. Now, obviously, Motley Crue, a massive rock and roll metal band from America. Now, the more famous singer is a guy called Vince Neil. This guy, John Corabi, took over during the grunge era, and he was a much better singer. And he's now a solo artist, and apparently he tells a lot of stories, very entertaining, and he's a fantastic singer too. So I'll need to be doing my homework before that one.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but that'll be a good night. Friday the 25th. It's run by a friend of mine, Kieran, from SD Entertainment as well. He does a lot of good work locally.
Brilliant. We look forward for that. You're going to play another one for us now. You're going to do No Longer, aren't you?
Yeah, I'll do No Longer, and then I'll do Sleeping in the Trenches, or else Rex will never forgive me.
Philip, good to see you as always. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me back. Absolute pleasure.
So here he is performing one more time, live for us in the NVTV studios. Here is Philip McCarroll.
When the moon backs down in the morning and the starlight dies on a vine, when my weary faith in you has been shaken, and that halo no longer shines. For in all honesty, you have flattered to deceive. I was foolish to drink from your wine. When my eyes display what my mouth can no longer say, well, it'll be, it'll be, it'll be. I believe I know this finally, that this lie no longer works for me. I believe, I believe. When my words reveal what my heart can no longer conceal, they will not be, no longer be, no longer be, no longer be for you, no longer be for you, no longer be for you, no longer be for you.
Right, time now to meet my final guest on the show this week. We're talking about some new research that has revealed that over 5 million people throughout the UK know little to nothing about their great-grandparents. So if you ever thought about researching your family tree, if you have, I'm going to be joined now by a lady who knows all about that. She's a journalist, a TV presenter, and renowned royal correspondent as well. I'm pleased to say Jennie Bond joins us on the line. Jennie, how are you today?
Very well, thank you. And a lot more knowledgeable, actually, because Findmypast have been looking into my past and come up with some real surprises.
So let's talk about what you've discovered recently then. Have you found out things you didn't know about your family?
I have indeed. First of all, they sent some initial research across, and they told me that my great-grandmother on my father's side was called Ellen Bond. I'd never heard of her. And that her maiden name was Collins. And I said, oh, well, I'm terribly sorry. A bit embarrassing, but I better tell you you've got that wrong, because Collins is from my mother's side, not my father's side. And they said, yes, we know that. Yes, your mother's side is Collins, but your father's side was Collins as well. Oh, I mean, total confusion in my head. They were right, I'm wrong. And I, who thought I was a Bond girl through and through, it seems I am a Collins girl, which actually Collins is a bit of an Irish name, isn't it?
It is, I think. So tell me this, is there any Irish blood in your system then?
Haven't come across it yet, but it's early days because Findmypast is still doing some research for me. But it was wonderful to find out, for example, not only that, but the fact that Ellen Bond, née Collins, my great-grandmother, came from Devon. And I live in Devon now. I'm a Hertfordshire girl, but I live in Devon, and I've always felt very at home here. Now, is that because, in fact, my great-grandmother was born here, worked here? She lived at a place called Torrington, where she was a glove maker, it seems, in a factory. And she had to do that because she was widowed when she was 31 and left with 7 children under 12. Can you imagine how hard life must have been? I told my daughter that. Our daughter is 32 with 2 little ones, aged 3 and 1, and she thinks, life's pretty tough. And she said, I will never complain again.
So is there anybody else in your family who is into journalism and showbiz and things like that?
Doesn't seem so. There's a bit of farming in the background. My great-grandfather on the other side was a labourer. And on my maternal side, they seem to be banking. They seem a bit more well-to-do on that side.
So let's talk more about this latest research then. 43% of people have been thinking more about their family and their ancestry ever since the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, haven't they?
Well, it seems that way. You know, I just think that those 10 days of mourning when we were seeing sights that we'd never seen in our lifetime, the pageantry, the ceremony, the grieving, I think perhaps it made us all a little bit more reflective and think about our own families a little bit. And this research showed up that, you know, most of us know a bit about our grandparents. That's fine. But when you come to great grandparents, 9 out of 10 of the people they questioned didn't know what the maiden name was. I didn't know, you know, didn't know what they did for a living, a complete blank. And that's so sad, because I think your roots and your heritage are what you are. They're in your DNA. They're what make you tick, perhaps. And I think it's really important to try to find out. But it's not important. It's certainly gratifying and illuminating to find out who you are.
Now, if people want to start tracing their family history, where's the best place to start then?
Well, Findmypast.co.uk will give you a link to the 1921 census, which you can now view online. They've got exclusive rights to that. And this is really what it's all about. They've got exclusive rights to the online 1921 census, which is only released after 100 years. So there's a whole lot of material there, a massive amount. And I'll tell you, I'm going to be going down lots of rabbit holes and investigating my past further. And you can do it at home now, you know, with a glass of wine or a cup of cocoa, whatever you fancy. That's what I'm going to be spending winter evenings doing.
And is it difficult to find photographs?
Photographs, I think, are trickier, but I've managed to unearth 1 or 2 of my great-grandparents. Look extraordinary, I have to say. But I think I know the other thing they found, actually, I only discovered this morning, that 2 of my great uncles were killed in the First World War. I think my grandmother was one of 13, and all the boys signed up. 2 were killed at a very early age, and they've traced their graves in France. I only found that out this morning, and I think I'm going to hop across to France and find them.
Good idea. Well, some great advice there, Jenny. I think I'm definitely going to be doing some research on my family tree after this. It's been great talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the show this evening.
Thank you.
So that's all we have time for on the show this week. Thank you to all my guests, and to play us out, we're joined once again by Philip McCarroll with a track called Sleeping in the Trenches. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Things don't have to be this way. Things can change. We see things in different ways. So rearrange, stay the same. Don't stay the same. Everybody wants a fight, and we should be ashamed. Oh, things don't have to be this way. Things can change. You swing left, so I lean right, 'cause that's the game. Stay the same. Don't stay the same. Everybody says they want the change, but we're sleeping in the trenches once again. We draw our lines and step inside. They say no news is good news, but no news is good. We take a stand on shifting sands. It don't make any difference. We know that it should. Oh, things don't have to be this way. Things can change. Everyone is so self-righteous and so strange. Stay the same. Don't stay the same. Everybody falls in line, and we should be ashamed. Oh, things don't have to be this way. Things can change. Absolutes and cookie cutter dreams. It's insane. Stay the same. Don't stay the same. No one's got the guts to take the blame. So we're sleeping in the trenches once again. We're wallowing in certainty. It's easier than ever admitting defeat. Hypocrisy is deafening. We preach to the converted, sing to the gallery. Whoa, things don't have to be this way. We seem cursed, sitting with our faces in our phones, made our words stay the same, don't stay the same. No one's got the guts to take the blame, so we're sleeping in the trenches once again. Everybody says they want the change, but we're sleeping in the trenches once again.